The new improved 1986 model has her as a savvy urban professional. Well, the picture of this cake mix maven sent one newspaper columnist into a stir. He is Bob Green of the Chicago Tribune, and he began a Betty Crocker look-alike contest. The winner is Randy Morgan, the assistant director of Chicago Art Gallery. Now, take a look. That's Randy on the right and Betty on the left. Randy joins us in our Chicago bureau along with Bob Green. Good morning to both of you.
How you doing?
Good morning.
Randy, when you first saw the new picture of Betty Crocker, the new image, did you see yourself as resembling her?
A little bit. It was the urging of a friend that prompted me to enter.
How much urging did that take?
Well, the urging of that friend and some co-workers, though it sounded like something that would be fun to enter.
Bob, where did the inspiration for this contest come from?
Well, I saw the new Betty Crocker, who they unveiled General Mills unveiled last spring. And you know, the old image of Betty Crocker used to be this sort of matronly, almost dull sort of image. But this new Betty Crocker, I looked at the picture and I realized I was having these lustful feelings for Betty Crocker. And so I wrote a column admitting that, and I got letters from all around the country saying that other men were feeling the same way, that they were embarrassed to admit it before I wrote about it, but they were attracted to Betty Crocker. So I called General Mills, and they said there was no real Betty Crocker, that it was drawn from the artist's imagination and there was no model. And I wouldn't believe that, so I started a Betty Crocker look-alike contest where all around the country, wherever my column is syndicated, we tried to find Betty Crockers. And we got hundreds and hundreds of entries, and finally Randy won.
How tough was it to come up with Randy?
Well, I tell you, it's really strange. Every day I'd have this huge pile of Betty Crocker letters, and I would open them up, and most of these women looked nothing like Betty Crocker. And I was all set to write a final column saying, General Mills is right, there is no Betty Crocker. And this last letter came in, and I opened it up, and it was Betty Crocker, and it was from Randy. And I couldn't believe it. I mean, I thought that they had proved me wrong. And she came into the Chicago Tribune to have her picture taken, and she's Betty.
How do you think, Randy, you fit into this new image of Betty Crocker? Are you the independent woman that they're trying to portray there?
Well, yes, I am an independent woman. I work, I live alone. I feel fairly contemporary. I'm not exactly the homemaker type.
Now, the National Organization for Women likes the idea of this new updated Betty Crocker image, but says that the look-alike contest maybe puts the emphasis on beauty rather than brains. What do you think?
I've never thought of myself as a beauty. I think I happen to look like Betty Crocker. And I'm a professional woman, which is certainly the image of the new liberated woman, I suppose.
Mm-hmm. Bob, how far have we come? Now, men do a lot of grocery shopping. They even do a lot of cooking now. Is there a possibility of ever getting a Billy Crocker look-alike contest?
No, somebody mentioned that they might be looking for a Bob Crocker instead of a Betty Crocker. I think Betty Crocker is always going to be a woman. And obviously I like what General Mills has done with the new Betty Crocker, and I'm glad it proved them wrong because they said there was none out there. There was no real Betty Crocker, and I think we found her.
Randy, what does this mean for you now? Do you go on tour now as the new Betty Crocker?
I doubt it. I think I'll keep selling art.
Okay. Thank you, Bob Green and Randy, for joining us today. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bruce,
Thank you.
could you be a Bob Crocker or a Billy Crocker? Are you much of a cook?
Don't think I'm good enough a cook.
Green of the Chicago Tribune has been searching for a Betty Crocker look-alike, and he's found her. She's a 39-year-old Chicago resident, and Eugenia Halsley tells us all about it.
It all started in June when Bob Green wrote that he was consumed with lustful feelings for the new yuppie version of Betty Crocker created by an artist.
I looked at Betty's picture and I thought, my goodness, there's something there beyond the kitchen. You know, I called General Mills and I asked if they knew that Betty was a sex symbol. And they said, well, I just wanted to sell cake mix.
To Green's surprise, he got letters from men all over the country saying they yearned for Betty too. But General Mills said there was no Betty Crocker. She was a product of the artist's imagination. Green refused to believe it.
So after thinking about this enough, I decided that I would start the Great Betty Crocker Look-alike contest.
Green invited women who felt they looked like Betty Crocker to send in pictures of themselves. The responses came pouring in, but no true lookalikes. Green was about to write, "There is no Betty Crocker," when he got the letter from Randy Morgan, an assistant director of an art gallery in Chicago.
I opened it up and I said, "This is Betty Crocker."
Betty Crocker, Green's Betty Crocker, it turns out, lives less than a mile from his office. She's 39, a native of Whitewater, Wisconsin.
A friend called me up the day Bob's column appeared announcing the contest and said, "Randy, you have to enter. You look just like Betty Crocker."
So at the last minute, she did.
So far, General Mills has no plans to make her an official spokesperson for its products, but Randy Morgan has already achieved a certain degree of fame.
Andy Warhol said everybody would be famous for 15 minutes, and these are my 15 minutes.
Bob Green says she should savor them.
This is what you'll be remembered for forever. You know that now.
Gosh, I might have to learn how to talk.
Eugenia Halsey, CNN, Chicago.
Oh, that was good, Randy.
All right, that was good.